All right. Well, here's the good news. I just got from a reliable source. Jackson Smith and Jigbu status changed from questionable to healthy.
Let's
I just,
go,
I just,
baby.
I just
Let's
had to
go.
start with that
Break
because
it. Break
that's the
it.
boy. That's the boy
Even though
right
this is
there.
coming out tomorrow, break the news.
Oh yeah. Well, the reliable source was Sleeper. So.
Gotta stay ahead
uh,
of the game.
all right, we're gonna go through. It's week 10. We're past the halfway point in the NFL season. It's been honestly, it really like I feel like maybe we say this every year, but like it has been a weird NFL season. I
It's a
feel
weird
like
NFL season. It's a quick NFL season. I feel like the season's just starting, but to think that like that it's already been 10. Like I was looking, it's like there's 4 games and then it's fantasy football playoffs, basically.
yeah, no, fantasy football playoffs are coming up fast, so we're gonna get you ready as we go into week 10. Uh and kind of go around the league a little bit. Some of the injuries, some people coming back from injuries, stuff like that. If you have any start sit questions, feel free to throw it in the comments. We'll try to answer those, but we'll also be live on Sunday morning answering all start sits as well. All right. I don't know if this is the biggest news. Maybe not. Probably not. I feel like it's been downplayed a little bit, but Kyler Murray is coming back.
I'm
Obviously,
excited about it.
yeah, I am too. I just feel like that team is so bad, but like we've been like waiting all season. Like, is he going to sit out the whole season and just going to try to tank the whole way through? I feel like we kind of just didn't necessarily see this coming the whole way, but people are just kind of is what it is right now.
No, I think it's something to be excited about, especially in this season. You mentioned this being a weird season. Quarterbacks, I feel like that's been the biggest thing, just quarterback injuries. Like Tommy DeVito in Dynasty League Superflex, Tommy DeVito, I spent basically the rest of my fab. He's probably not going to be anything, but once
That
the
was
trade,
crazy.
but I mean, at this point, one, who's available on the waiver wire, but number two, once the trade deadline passes, if there's an injury to a quarterback, if Dak gets hurt, I need someone I can fill in as a quarterback. So in these deeper leagues, someone like Tommy DeVito, Josh Dobbs, like they're very
Josh Dobbs
relevant
is
players
QB
for you.
10. Josh Dobbs
That's
is QB
nuts.
10. That
He's
is
been this
nuts.
year's Geno Smith. Not quite as
Yeah.
good, but very similar.
Yeah, but from a fantasy standpoint, yeah, for sure.
But I guess
Uh
I mean, no, he's pretty old actually. That's what always shocks me. He's like 28
Yeah, he's definitely been around the league for a little bit. I was surprised he got such a big opportunity this year and
and keeps getting them.
made the most of it, honestly. And
He'll get a contract.
goes to Minnesota, doesn't even know the receivers' names that he's even passing the ball to because, everyone's injured. KJ Osborne got injured in that game. Justin Jefferson's injured, so now they're on like third, fourth string guys, especially. Of course, he doesn't know these guys' names. And he's like, whatever. They said, this is insane. They said that he was in the huddle, literally being like, okay, what route are you running? Okay, cool. What route are you running?
You
All
have
right,
to,
cool.
dude. There's no way you can memorize full playbooks in like
No,
3 days.
no. We saw Baker Mayfield do that last year too. It's really impressive. It's very impressive to see. That just means you're just on a whim trying to read a defense without really studying it, without knowing it, any of the plays, and just running very basic plays, and they got the win. So that was pretty cool for him.
Yeah, but what Kyler Murray doesn't have to do is that. Kyler Murray knows the system. He's going to come in. But the thing is, it's new with Gannon. So it'll be interesting to see the first time with him with Gannon out there,
Yeah,
uh, however much of an impact that is.
I obviously like I think he could be a little bit rusty, but I mean in theory he's been studying that playbook all season long and been able to stand on the sideline and run through mental reps. Hopefully, it's not the same as being in the game for sure. I am curious to see what that leg looks like. Obviously coming off the ACL tear, like he's a rushing quarterback. His fantasy upside, the reason why he's been a top 10 fantasy quarterback the last his whole career basically is because of his rushing ability as a quarterback. That's probably not there right now. I hope and I assume that it comes back eventually, but it's possible that it's not there right now. I do still think he's easily finishes easily as a top 20 QB in fantasy this week. I mean, he's definitely a QB2. If you're in a super flex league, he's definitely a play. And I think by the end of the season, we see him creeping back towards that QB1 standpoint.
Now, another guy on the Cardinals here coming back is someone who I think could be a league winner the rest of the way through, and James Conner.
Yeah,
He was a beast before he got injured. He was a every week reliable RB2. And again, with injuries at this point in the season, going into the playoffs, if you can have a player like that who's consistently getting you opportunities for touchdown, getting high carry percentage, and now that they have Kyler back, the defense is going to have to respect the pass a little bit more. So I feel like James Conner could be even better than he was before too.
yeah, absolutely. I was almost a little bit surprised by how good he was this season.
He's
Uh,
always slept on. He was so good. Like people were talking about him as like a top 5 running, not top 5, top 10 running back when he first broke out in Pittsburgh, and now people act like he went somewhere. But I mean, right here, balling out.
yeah, absolutely. He has finished his all right. His last game he got injured. The game before that wasn't super impressive. He only got 11 attempts, but the first 3 games of the season he was doing great. And I do expect that again, especially in the offense, hopefully looking a little bit better now with Kyler coming back, just and him coming back. Like this offense should be a boost. It's kind of like when you like instead of trading for a player, if you've been kind of in a good position, if you're in a playoff spot right now and you just got James Conner back, that's like you just traded for James Conner basically. Like that's your acquisition midway through the season, and that's a huge boost for you because he is going to be a play every single week.
Yeah, and I think he's someone you can still get on the low as it comes into the trade deadline here as well. Before he comes back and people remember how good he was, especially coming off like a not so great week before the injury as well, like you said. But
Yeah.
I think it's more the first 3 games more than the last one.
Yeah, 100%. I think like he's the they've been dealing with Keontae Ingram or whatever his name is, and
Who?
Demarcado.
Who?
Who? I gotta stop doing that because my mic is probably gonna over modulate. I'm sorry if my audio is bad. Um, who? Um, but yeah, exactly. So James Cotter very clearly gonna be getting a large percentage of the workload there. Um, I guess just another running back who was a huge workhorse in the beginning of the season coming back. And man, I hope this doesn't piss off Jahmyr Gibbs owners because David Montgomery is coming back. And we know that David Montgomery at the start of the season was just getting almost all of the running back touches, almost entirely all of them. And Jahmyr Gibbs' talent was finally shown to a real extent once David Montgomery went down with an injury. And I don't know, does Dan Campbell do what's right and keep going with Jahmyr Gibbs as the lead back? Or does he think that his lead back was injured and now he's happy to have David Montgomery back?
I mean, he's come out and said that David Montgomery is their lead back over there. I think Jahmyr Gibbs has earned more touches as the season has gone on. But he's not going to be what he was last week for the rest of the season as long as David Montgomery's there. That's for sure. I mean, maybe there'll be a week or two, but you can expect, I'd say 10 to 15 point upside, but realistically could have a lot of 5 point weeks as well from Gibbs. I think David Montgomery has a lot of like he's a player who you can feel confident in starting every week because there's a great chance he's going to get one of those rushing touchdowns. And then also what I want to say is a point here. I'm gonna take a lap right here and say that before the season I was taking so much shit for saying that Jahmyr Gibbs is not who people want him to be this year, and that it's going to take a year. I said that could take a half a season. It could take a full year. It could take 2 years. He's going to be good, but he's not going to be at the start. And it was so obvious with Dan Campbell. And people were like, oh, no running back taking that early, didn't finish top 10 in fantasy. He's not top 20 in fantasy. He's almost exactly the same thing that David Montgomery is, even with the injuries points wise. And I'll be damned if he somehow finishes in the top 10 in fantasy this year.
Yeah, with David Montgomery coming back, I don't think Jahmyr Gibbs finishes in the top 10. But yeah, I mean,
he's a great dynasty player. Let me say that straight. Like he's someone in dynasty who I think he's a top 10 dynasty fantasy player right now. There's just no way that was going to happen this season.
But yeah, extremely great talent. If you're in redraft, like you might just trade Jahmyr Gibbs right now because he's put together a few great weeks. It's not going to look like that. I do
up closer to what his height was.
Yeah. I do think that David Montgomery does not get the same amount of touches that he got in those first few games of the season. Agreed. I still think he gets over 50% of the touches though. He's still the lead back. He probably gets
just due to
60, 70% probably.
Not wanting him to get re-injured or as well as Gibbs earning more
And
touches.
yeah,
But
of
it's not
course.
like there's no way like they're just gonna forget about David Montgomery. I feel like Campbell made that very clear.
Yeah, and Dave Montgomery was pretty effective. And by the way, in fantasy, he's seventh this season in average points per game.
Yeah.
So he's a top 10 running back, and he probably will continue to be close to that top 10 mark the rest of the way as well. So yeah, I expect him to get a lot of the carries still. Tough for Jahmyr Gibbs owners. Dan Campbell, and listen, Dan Campbell is, he's proven to be a very good coach so far in the NFL. But Dan Campbell was public enemy number one when this season started for fantasy wise. And him and Arthur Smith, man, those are two guys that are not liked by the fantasy community. The difference is that Arthur Smith is an idiot and they're not winning games.
That's the one difference is one is respected by NFL fans and the other one is
Yeah.
not. Like he's just making a mockery of himself at this point.
So bad, dude. So bad, dude. There's some real bad coaches out there. And honestly, it's one thing to be a bad coach. It's another thing to stand up in front of the media and just look like an idiot. Like, and Eberflus the other day looked like an idiot as well. I just want to say that. My guy was asked, so what exactly are the medical staff waiting? Have you talked to them? What exactly is it that they're waiting for to clear him? And this guy's answer was, well, the medical staff obviously needs to clear him.
Yeah, I feel like he was just being stubborn. Like he just wasn't answering the question. Like he thought he was being smart, but just was making no sense. Like he could have, like he was getting into a game that he didn't need to get into.
That's a guy who has been chewed out by the media all season long because they haven't been successful, and it's getting to his head, and he doesn't want to give the media anything. That's what that is.
Dude, one thing I feel like we've seen so much in sports this year, and maybe it's just like I just didn't notice in the past, is the amount of times that like media and fans have been getting to players and owners to where they're like responding on the field, responding like
Kenneth Gainwell.
yeah, well, like I mean, like I wasn't even thinking about that one, but like that, like I'm thinking of like every sport too. Like people are just talking and like getting into fights with fans so much now, and it's kind of bizarre. Like I feel like they're at a breaking point where like it's like one bad event away from them like not like moving everyone really far back, like getting the Spencer Strider? What he want? Just upper bowl.
Yeah. No fans. Wait, do you remember? Was it the
That's never
NBA
gonna happen.
playoffs last year? The NBA playoffs last year or two? It was the year after COVID when they first brought fans back. I think fans were just going insane. There was like popcorn thrown in Philadelphia. There was like protesters trying to chain themselves to the
Oh, yeah, there's the Minnesota where they were like gluing themselves to the court.
yeah,
And like they were
gluing
like
themselves to
dressing
the
up and like
court
they like would take off like the refs would like see him or like the security guards like
and
saw
just
him and like
tackle them
him.
immediately.
That's crazy.
Dude, do you know how long you would
That
have to
was
stay on the
wild.
floor with fucking glue?
For
It
a
would
full
take
person to be glued. That would have to be like cement. Even that wouldn't even work.
unbelievable.
That's crazy.
All right. Back to football. All right. Somebody who was a breakout last week, finally coming back from injury, an undrafted running back, but actually a guy who I heard his name coming up.
Big Keat.
Big Key, Keaton Mitchell.
Yeah. I mean, Baltimore is an interesting one this year as a whole. And
They
the
have a
running back
really good running
situation in
attack.
general,
They
but
just have a good running attack.
you think they're for real? You really do you think they're a Super Bowl contender right now? Because power rankings have them at like 3.
Dude, I mean, like, it's hard to deny that they've looked like one of, if not the best AFC team. But I have always been a Lamar Jackson hater. And I still am yet to see, I still don't think he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. To be truthfully honest with you, it's also true that like we talked about this guy never having really good wide receivers. I still don't think he really has good wide receivers.
No, that's the weird thing is like when I like hear their team, they don't scare me. But every time I see scores, every time I look at the box scores, when I see highlights, to be honest, I don't watch many Ravens games. So it just like every time I seem like, man, they won again. They won again. They won again. I will say it doesn't really look like they have big wins. I could be wrong and I could sound like an idiot right now, but I don't think they have a lot of big wins on there. I think it's
Yeah,
similar to the
they
Eagles last
destroyed
year where they kind of
Seattle.
walk through. I mean, like Seattle's another one where it's like they're on fraud watch it right now for sure.
Okay, yeah, they destroyed Seattle, and yeah, Seattle to me. Oh, here's the thing: that offense has been awful. Like Geno Smith is not hit. He's not it.
What do
Yeah,
you feel about DK?
little one hit wonder. I don't think DK will. Assuming Geno looks a little bit better. I mean, DK's the wide receiver one there. I think he'll get his. I still think DK. I think DK finishes the rest of the way better than he has started. To be honest with you. I think he's too good of a player for them to not realize they need to manufacture ways to get him the ball. And Pete Carroll's a good coach. I think that they're going to figure some things out there. They might have to simplify things for Geno, to be honest with you, because the dude throws a lot of interceptions, just straight up. Like he's not that good.
They have some
Uh,
bad losses.
but yeah, and so I think they are frauds. I think that offense isn't great. I think the Ravens crushing them though is still pretty impressive. They crushed the Lions also. I
That
don't
was
know.
yeah,
They've got
that's
some
a good
big
win.
tests coming up. Yeah, the Lions is definitely a big win for them. That's about
I
it
think
though.
we know how I feel
Well, they
about
beat the Bengals, but that was when the Bengals were looking bad early on. So
the Bengals. Still, like I feel like they're still like not even they're the only difference from the start of the year till now. This is gonna sound really stupid. Is like yardage wise, it's almost identical. It's like now they're just actually scoring touchdowns. It's like they're just like that's a huge thing to do, but like
yeah,
they
but like
they've
that just
looked
means I feel
they don't
like
look as explosive as they had in the past.
that's still true. Yeah, I agree with that. That's still true. I mean, Joe Burrow was definitely injured early on, and I think he's worked his way out of that. That's a big part
Yeah.
of it. But like, let's talk about it because T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, you
Out,
got to watch those
right?
two because
I don't
both
they're
of
not
them are
out. Don't take
injured.
that, but they might be out.
I think it's more likely that T. Higgins is out, and if they're both out, like holy crap, that I can't imagine them looking good. But if either of them out, Tyler Boyd could be a play this week.
I agree with that. Tyler Boyd's been similar to Curtis Samuel. I feel like we're just like that sneaky wide receiver 3 who's putting up numbers. But honestly, Chase and T. Higgins more so, hasn't they have not been impressive this year outside of 2 games. They each had 2 games where they kind of popped off a little bit. And outside of that, it's been outside of top 10 wide receivers of those weeks pretty consistently. So, and Jamar Chase was going top 3 in a lot of leagues. So he definitely isn't living up to the standard. And T. Higgins as well. I saw a stat somewhere that said T. Higgins is the number 1 owned player on winless fantasy football teams at like it's either 10 or 20%.
Yeah,
I know it's a big jump, but I know it's like a 10,
that's
at least
probably
10%.
what second round, maybe third round guy. T. Higgins.
Probably second. I feel like him and Waddle both were in that
He's
like
been
mid
really
to late second.
disappointing.
Who
He's been
Waddle
injured and
or
just
Higgins?
hasn't
Yeah,
looked like
Higgins.
himself. Jamar Chase kind of has looked like himself, but I think that offense has just been streaky also. But yeah, the report is that T. Higgins is unlikely to play and that Jamar Chase practiced today limitedly. He returned to
So he'll
practice.
probably play.
So I think Jamar Chase will likely play. So
But still, I like Boyd there. Obviously,
yeah,
Chase, like you're starting. He's everything that I say as far as like not being great. Like he's still someone who should be. He has the potential to be a top 5 wide receiver, top 2 wide receiver every week.
yeah, absolutely, 100% he does. And it's honestly, and if T. Higgins is out, it probably helps him out a little bit more too, depending if he's like has a nagging injury that he's playing through or not.
And when
I
he
guess.
pops off, he pops off. It's like three touchdowns and 200 yards.
Yeah, he will easily. I mean, he's their number one target every single week, obviously. But like, if T. Higgins isn't there, like this dude is just going to be like the guy they're throwing to in the end zone. Like he's going to be the guy. So, and honestly, this interesting. If T. Higgins doesn't play, if both of them don't play, Joe Burrow, I don't know. I don't know if I could. I mean, if I have like a Sam Howell, I play Sam Howell over Joe Burrow. If I have, I don't know. I mean, it would be hard to have a backup QB that could be relevant enough to pass Joe Burrow, but like I think that offense could look pretty brutal if both of them are out.
Yeah, I just feel like they're gonna keep the ball in Burrow's hands though, regardless. He's a I said it. I know I said it at some point this season to bench Burrow. I think within the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I know for a fact that backfired that week. So I can't get myself to say that again after that happened.
No, he's come back alive for sure. Like Joe Burrow has bounced back, and yeah, I've liked him the rest of the way. I mean, I'm easily starting him over Herbert. Yeah, Justin Herbert. Yeah, I mean Herbert. That offense has not looked very good, and Herbert has not looked very good this season either.
I'm out on Quentin Johnson completely. I wouldn't take him for a third.
No, absolutely not. Absolute bust. Said it coming into the season. Never thought he was really that good. Saw just a few games at TCU with some drop passes. They're trying. They're trying to get him worked into that offense. With injuries, he has to be in that offense. There's not really anybody else. He's their next guy up. But
The OGs are balling out over there though. Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler. I know Eckler's been hurt for a lot of season, but he's starting
Keenan
to
Allen
get
has
back
been
there.
awesome, man.
Yeah, Keenan Allen. I think he's wide receiver like 6.
Yeah, I think so. I think he might be 5, but yeah, 100% there. Yeah, unfortunate for Josh Palmer because I really thought he was going to get his opportunity, and now he's injured as well. But regardless, yeah, yeah, those guys are all still plays for me. But Herbert right now,
Quentin Johnson's not in any circumstance.
yeah, not Quentin Johnson, but Herbert. Yeah, Quentin Johnson is not valuable for me like I wouldn't touch him. You could if you can sell Quentin Johnson for a second. Listen, I get it. Like you just drafted him. I get it. But like you don't
Sometimes
want
the
to
writing's on the wall.
Yeah, like you don't want to lose value that quickly. I get it. But like you're gonna just keep losing value if you hold on to him. That's my opinion. I don't think he ends up being very much. I think that if he's not like next up to be wide receiver 1, like we talk about Keenan Allen's a little bit older there. It's not Quentin Johnson's next up when Keenan Allen retires. That's not.
There's a better chance Mike Williams becomes wide receiver 1 there after all these injuries before Quentin Johnson becomes wide receiver 1.
Yeah,
Mike Williams has a very low percentage chance of being a wide receiver 1 on a team.
Even if Quentin Johnson starts to look a little bit better in the NFL, he's just not a wide receiver 1 on any team in the NFL ever. He's not. And honestly, I don't think he was ever drafted assuming he was going to be.
He was Kadarius Toney.
Yeah.
Big body receiver, intimidating, just can't catch the ball, can't get open, or like gets open a lot of times, just can't catch the balls when he does get open.
Yeah, like to me, like he's on the same level now as Treylon Burks. Like you can write Treylon Burks off. He's a bust.
Writing was on the wall there too.
Yeah. You can only look bad for so long, and normally I let you go your entire rookie season, and the next season you'll start to look better. But the thing with Quentin Johnson is if you're assuming that he's going to be like let's just say a wide receiver 1 in the NFL, that's not true. You can't be banking on that. So if you are banking on that, it's time to sell. If you want to hold him on just because you want the depth and you have a pretty stacked team already, fine, I guess. But and look, he could look a little bit better next year. He could be a little bit more involved in that offense next year, but he's never going to be a top 20 wide receiver in fantasy.
No. Speaking of tanking, here's a fantasy question for you. Let's say you have 4 wins right now. Are you buying or selling right now? And you're like, let's say like
that would make you
out of playoffs.
That would make you 4 and 5.
4 and
4 and 5. We're going to week
4 and
10.
5. Yeah, 4 and 5.
If you're 2 games in redraft, I'm always buying
Dynasty.
But in Dynasty,
the Dynasty podcast,
be real.
Dynasty.
I know, of course, absolutely. But be real with yourself. Honest to God, be real with yourself because you're trying to win a championship. Making the playoffs is fun, but if you're 4 and 5, you're not too far away probably from being a real contender, but you're not winning the championship this year. That's facts. So
let's say you got a lot of young players on your team.
Yeah. If you're 4 and 5, you take every old player you have. You take
DK Metcalf.
Adams. You take Travis Kelce,
for instance.
Yeah, DK. I could sell if you could sell DK for a first plus. I'd do it. I would do it if you could. You'd sell Travis Kelce
first and a second.
Sell Devontae Adams.
Would you do DK Metcalf for a first and a second?
I think that's fair value for him. I think that's fair value for him both ways. If you're a contender and you want, and it's not a bad time to buy DK Metcalf, to be honest with you.
You're a contender, you can use him for sure.
If you can buy DK for a first and you're a contender, I think that's a pretty good move. I think
what about 2 seconds?
I don't sell for that for DK.
Over 2 seconds, but a first and a second you would.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
That's the cutoff. What if it's like 2 seconds and like Jaden Reed?
No, because I mean, unless you're just I don't think so. Because for me, like you're just getting a bunch of average players and not getting someone that's going to be better.
Dude, like DK. A Chan went in the second round.
No, I know. Of course.
There's a lot of good talent. Second round's the new first in Superflex, baby. Players fall down there.
I know. No, seconds are great to have.
In the fourth.
Seconds are great to have.
I don't know. Well, maybe someone listening to this will be like,
it's close. It's close. It's close value, but it's like one of those things for me where like you're on keep, trade, cut, and you just keep on adding players. Eventually you'll get to the right value. But like, is a bunch of Jaden Reed level players equal to DK Metcalf? Like, I don't think so.
I didn't say Jaden Reed level players.
But I think that's like, I know.
Second, Jaden Reed went in the third. I got him in the third this year.
Yeah, and he's probably outplaying what he went for.
But when I'm drafting in the second, I'm not trying to get Jaden Reed type players. Zay Flowers went, what was it, second? Like that happens though.
Early second, but he shouldn't have. But yeah,
but that happened. That's what I'm saying. And that happened. That will happen in people's league. So if you have it, dude, seconds are the most underrated value in fantasy football. I'm telling you.
No, I agree with
you. Seconds of all rounds. The early thirds, I like. I'll take if someone has a pick right now that's like early third. Like
if you gave me 3 seconds for DK, I would accept it in a heartbeat. If you gave me 3 seconds for DK, yeah, I accept that.
But you just said Jaden Reed's a second round player. You're saying he's you said a bunch of second round players, and you're gonna sit here and tell me that you.
Here's the thing.
If Jaden Reed's worth
if you have 3 seconds, it is likely one will be a bust. It was likely that one will be just an okay depth piece, and you might hit pretty well on another. That's what I think.
Well, look at DK right now, but this is the thing. DK's not what DK was, and we don't know what DK's punching people on the field every other week.
Why is he not that good this year?
I mean, I don't know. It's a great question. Like it's not like they're all focusing on him. They got JSN, they got Lockett, they got DK. Like you can't tell me that DK is for sure gonna like be a top 10 wide receiver going forward in after year.
I think he's a top 20 wide receiver going forward. He's too young to have fallen off.
Top 20, yeah. No, I don't think he's falling off. But I'm saying right now, if you're a rebuilding team in Dynasty, I don't like if you don't think you're gonna win the championship this year or next year, I'm getting rid of DK Metcalf.
He got targeted 4 times last game.
That's brutal.
That's not his fault. Now, granted, the game before he got targeted 14 times, it did not do very much with it. But again, like I was not sitting down watching this game. Like that could be just because they couldn't throw a deep ball. They were getting him short passes. I don't know. It was yards per target, less than 5 yards per target that game. 14 targets, but less than 5 yards per target.
All I'm saying is fantasy football or just football, not fantasy football, football in general. Like things can change really quickly for the good or for the better. He could be doing nothing for the next 3 years, then all of a sudden pop off again and go crazy. But as far as Dynasty goes, I just feel like you have to be going off what you see right now. And if you're reading off all these stats and they're not that impressive, if I'm rebuilding, I'll take 2 seconds for DK Metcalf or a first and a second, absolutely immediately.
First and second, sure, but I don't think that's true. I don't think you should look at the stats right now and evaluate what his career is going to be moving forward.
I'm not saying that's how you should 100% do it, but I think you need to take that account a lot. When I hear a lot of players' names, like Devontae Adams, I could care less about right now. Like players. Name value to me, that's one thing I've did this year or told myself to do is not take names into consideration. Look at stats of all years. Look at how they're doing. Take everything into account, but don't look at what their name is and what their name sounds like in fantasy because there's so many players out there that are nice fantasy football names but aren't good to have on your fantasy football team in most situations. But our biases, and when we think back to the years where we won championships with, I don't know who on our, like Jerick McKinnon, he's a player who I'm holding on to my team for I don't know what reason in redraft leagues, just because I remember all the years where he's good, but the writing on the wall is he's probably never going to do anything relevant again in fantasy, probably for his career. Sorry to just throw a stray at Jerick McKinnon there.
No, I think your philosophy is correct, but I think you have to do a deeper dive into the numbers. Take a look at this. Like last season, 6 touchdowns, and he finished as in standard. He finished as wide receiver 18. The previous 2 years, he finished as 11 and 6. Those previous 2 years, he had 12 touchdowns and 10 touchdowns. This year, he has 2 touchdowns. Take a look at this. Look at the yards per target versus the yards per catch this season for him. This is week 8. Yards per target, 4.79. Yards per catch, 13.4. Yards per target, 7.67. Yards per catch, 17.25. They're not throwing a deep ball to him, and he's making it happen. He's doing everything he can. I just think that offense is bad.
If you're not a top 10 wide receiver when you had 10 touchdowns, that's a bad. That's a scare. That it shows it's not sustainable.
10 touchdowns. He was in 2020 he was really good. He finished in standard as wide receiver 6 when he had 12 touchdowns. The next year he was wide receiver 11 when he had 12 touchdowns.
11 with 12 touchdowns is crazy. If you have 12 touchdowns, you should be a top 3 wide receiver. That's almost the most touchdowns that, like, last year Jamal Williams had the most with 16. Like, that's right up there. He was a top 10, top 12 running back.
You're not being fair to DK Metcalf.
Nah, I'm a hater, honestly.
It is. Listen, it's true that offense may not look better next year, but I honestly think the talent. He's still a talented wide receiver. I do think situation matters, but in Dynasty long term, talent outweighs situation. He could get traded midway through the season next year. He could be a really big trade. Like, there could be big rumors around him as we head into the trade deadline next year. So a year from now, we could be saying something completely different.
All I'm saying is I think I'm giving a first for DK. I don't think I'd throw in a second if I'm there. I think I'm going.
That's fair.
I do 2 seconds in a player maybe, but I wouldn't give up a first plus.
Yeah.
I'd say nope, sticking my foot down at first. That's fair for a top 15 or top 20 wide receiver.
Yeah. All right. I think we know what our thumbnail has to be.
DK's bum ass. Just kidding. Shout out DK.
Is he a bum ass? My guy.
Honestly, this is all propaganda to get myself.
I know it is. I know it is.
I was wondering how long it would be till you picked up that
I already knew, man.
But yeah, so trade me DK Metcalf. Next episode, we'll let you know, is DK Metcalf on my team. I'm the best team in the league. Nothing else to say about it. The best record. I'm like 20 points off top points. Last year, I didn't even make the playoffs. You got to listen to us, man. We're going to give you the advice. Dan's in great rebuilding position. Each week, he's getting better. He almost gave a top 3 team in the league a loss last week.
The team who had the most points earlier in the season, I beat. Who else did I beat? The worst team in the league. No.
And if you're listening this long, you better subscribe anyway. We got great advice. Honestly, if you listen through us rambling about all that at that point, throw the subscribe, throw the likes. Let's get it popping out here. Death by Dynasty, baby.
Real quickly, you traded me Nico Collins last week. I like Nico Collins a lot. I love that offense a lot. Is Tank Dell going to take over there as the wide receiver?
Tank Dell's a dog. I think he is wide receiver 1 right now as far as
last week
points.
He was.
He's done that quite a few times. I think that's a very much wide receiver 1A, 1B. Like when I say that, I'm not saying they're both like elite wide receivers, but I think they're both wide receivers who you can count on week to week basis, and both have a lot. I think out of the both of them, they're both surprising, but Tank Dell was one that came on strong. Like even like start of the year, especially like he's like Nico Collins blew up and Tank Dell still was able to kind of even keep building.
Yeah.
But the reason is CJ Stroud's
Nico
a dog.
Collins breakout year. He's wide receiver 14. Yeah, CJ Stroud is amazing. He's elite. He is.
I said that too. Bring that
10.
tape back in here and throw that in there too with the Jameer Gibbs stuff. I said CJ.
Cut it up and throw it on social media.
Let's
go
find
it. Go fucking find it.
I'm throwing it in there. It's gonna be right here. I'm gonna say ding, and it's gonna pop up right there.
Do it. Nico Collins is a little banged up. I don't think he practiced on Thursday, so monitor that. If he's out, Tank Dell to the freaking moon, dude. Tank Dell to the freaking moon. For sure.
Texans are a scrappy squad out there.
They are 100%. 100%. I think that's all I got. That's all I got.
Go get yourself a dub this week. How about this? Dynasty owners out there, if you have 4 wins, start selling. Start stocking up on those picks. You can rebuild so fast.
Look yourself in the mirror.
Don't be scared to get rid of those players for picks. You could trade those picks right back for players again.
Do you know how easy it is, bro? I just keep on trading quarterbacks. 3rd here, 2nd here, 3rd here.
You send enough trades, you'll get someone to bite, and that's when fantasy gets fun. So don't be scared. And if you're in a good position right now, start buying everyone. Start sending picks out there. Get stuff done.
If you think you're going to win the championship this year, realistically, you should not have a 2024 first left.
You shouldn't have first in general, honestly.
That may be
I don't.
True.
I haven't had first for a minute, and if I have them, that's on my team for like 3 days.
Maybe true. Be real with yourself. Hit the subscribe button. Comment your start sit questions below, and we will see you Sunday morning. We'll be live.
Let's go. Peace.
Peace out.